What's going on, fam? This is Producer Points, and I got a special one for you on today. Get ready, get ready, get ready. I got a good friend of mine. Listen, we started our friendship on a platform, a Sonar platform that started on Facebook, and we've been thicker than thieves ever since. We have been collaborators. He is a skillful musician. He's a skillful engineer. He's a teacher. He has his own business. He has his own studio. I'm going to bring to you on this platform. You've seen him before, but this time is in living color. No one other than Martin Blockson. Man, I'm bringing you up in this joint. What's going on, Doc?
I said, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Oh, man, I'm glad to have you, Doc, man. And so, listen, man, we were talking earlier today because we working on Bishop Julian Turner out of Phoenix, Arizona. You've done a couple of tracks, and man, it's just been lovely, man. You know, and if it wasn't really for you, as far as my business piece, I probably wouldn't be still doing stuff with him because you took my level of expertise and business side in music as far as to the next level. So what we're gonna want to do, man, we're gonna bring this conversation that we was talking about 4.5 hours ago, and we want to talk about today the difference between an engineer, their role, and the producer piece. And so, because I was in a situation about 2 years ago where I had to kind of bring the fire down on an engineer that thought he was trying to be a producer and tear up my tracks. So I want you to just kind of lead off a little bit, and I'm gonna, go back and forth a little bit with you. Go on, share with the people real quick, my friend.
Well, I think that the definition of producer has changed throughout the years, especially now, between now and back then. When I was coming up, when I think of production, I think of the big heavyweight guys, the Quincy's,
right,
the Jimmy Jams, those teams, the LA Babyface, Teddy Riley's, and there's so many other ones. But when you're talking about the next level, when you're dealing with record companies, you're talking about it's really the paid opinion. But you're also in charge. You have to have the ability to wear a bunch of hats. One, you have to be able to manage, or you had to be able to manage, budgets. Which means paying the engineers, paying the studio. That's if you were able to do an all-in budget with the label, if they allowed you to do all of that. And that required a certain level of trust that you were going to deliver the product in a timely manner, at a professional level, industry standard. You're in charge of paying musicians, engineers, running the sessions, but also part of the modern day producer, where a lot of times back in the day, they didn't necessarily write. But now with technology and as time went on, since I would probably say the late 80s and 90s, you had more writer producer types, the David Fosters, we can go on and on about that. But you're talking about guys that understood. They were artists themselves. They were writers, arrangers. These guys can do everything, especially when you're talking about guys like Quincy. To me, that's like the pinnacle. He's the consummate professional example, because he managed personalities. When he did We Are the World, no one else could manage all of those superstars at one time, and kind of keep their egos in check. He made them check their egos at the door. And what's interesting about that, Quincy, he's a people person.
Right.
You have to be able to navigate, working even with temperamental artists. So you're talking about, and that really sometimes entails being a counselor, being a good listener,
Okay.
Being able to put your own pedigree and your own, your own ego aside, because the most important thing is the number one, as David Foster used to say, that it's the song, the song, the song. Those are the priorities.
Wow.
Whatever the song needs, the song should get. If it needs, if it's screaming for strings, then you bring it. If it's string, whatever kind of background singers, those kind of things, you need to book those people. If you felt like a particular artist or a particular group of singers or a particular rhythm section, you had to be able to manage that and to bring all that stuff together. So, but sometimes dealing with artists can be weird, and you have to be able to build rapport with people. It's not just like now, every kid with a computer running Pro Tools or Logic or whatever just says, here's my beat, come sing on it. And if they can't bring it to the table, they just say, oh, that singer's a whack. There's no such thing as a whack singer when you're getting paid that kind of money they're paying. It's on the producer.
Yeah.
So you have to bring it home, because if they believe in that artist for whatever reason, you have no choice. You have to deliver.
Right. Now, check this out. So as it relates to engineers and the dynamic between an engineer, not just definition, but the role of the engineer versus the producer. You did touch up on the producer.
Right.
See, a producer has many hats, like you were saying. But let's talk about the difference about the engineer.
Well, you're talking about the sonic responsibility, bringing the producer's audio vision of the piece, to create space, understanding that music is not just left, right, and center. You have to be able to create depth and height. You have to think three-dimensional.
Yes.
And if you're talking about doing things in, 7.1 or whatever, you have to be able to create that space for everything and create that depth. You have to really understand, even if you were mixing an orchestra, you have to understand that the tuba is way to the right, but in the back, behind the trombones or the timpani, or, maybe the first violin is over here on the left, slightly to the left, but then behind that, you might hear a clarinet. So you have to use all these tools, using rooms, understand that materials of the room produce different things. Maybe wood, a wooden stage, or if they were outside, or whatever it calls for, or if they were in some kind of museum, and to be able to create that sound or whatever, you're responsible for the producer's vision. Using frequency, delays, effects to bring the picture home and to create this image.
Right.
This for image than just, left, right, and center. It sounds mixes that are done with that, without the concept of depth. It's lacking.
That's right.
And for the most part, unless there's you're dealing with a superstar engineer who's responsible for the sound of a particular producer. Michael Jackson had Bruce Swedeen. Quincy and Michael had Bruce Swedeen, right?
Yeah.
So
one of the greats.
Yeah. So the L.A. Bayface, they had Dave Wade, they had a whole bunch of So, but there was some kind of partnership. But it was also understood that the producers, that's the final word. Yes. Not what the engineer says. And sometimes what's lacking with a lot of studio sessions is etiquette.
Mm.
How to speak to each other. Sometimes producers get on this high kick. Well, you do what I say. Well, you know, a good boss or a good leader knows how to say, well, let's try this. You know, I'm not sure. Like when I was coming up, I was kind of spoiled with major labels, you know, the ability to work with, you know, any engineer I wanted to mix this thing. Oh, I can go to LA to mix this in this room, or I can go to New York and mix in that room. It didn't matter who you want. You know, it's like, okay, well, let's see. I'll listen through some records and I want this particular engineer. So I was a young producer, not really knowing everything about engineering, just basic concepts of that. But you got to learn how to speak to these guys, because a lot of times these great engineers are a bunch of really old fat white guys with receding hairlines. Those guys, and I tell these young people this, you will never be at the point where you knock these guys or take these guys' gigs. When you see these big Beyonce records or Rihanna, chances are they're not engineered by us. They're old engineers that are mixing these, because they have the concept. One, they were brought up in the time with the technology,
right,
with the hardware, with the big multi-million-dollar SSL rooms or the big Neve rooms or whatever, and you can go down the whole list of studios internationally. They've been in those rooms. They know what this particular gear sounds like. They know what this model of this gear came out, what it sounds like. And so when, you know, we move into the digital age with plugins, they already know what these things sound like, and they can tell you if this plugin is really legit or it's good. What can I do? So they have years and years of knowledge and expertise and relationships, and they understand. They've been through millions of sessions. So you're not, as a young engineer, you're not going to knock them out. But one of the biggest things is as an engineer, you have to respect and share the vision that the producer is. You have to understand the song. What's the story? What is the song about? How am I going to make this song feel and convey the feelings of the song, and then the writer as well as the artist? And it's like I said, it's back to the same thing. What's your responsibility to the song, the song, the song? That's it.
Yes, sir.
You
you really pulling out a plethora of information, you know, because like you were saying, there are a lot of young people that got MacBook Pros or either got an Alienware, and they got all these plugins, but they don't really understand the depth of hardware. And then one of the things that I always tell young beat makers, young engineers, I said, man, your ear has to be developed. And a lot of times they don't have the history, like you said, like the old guys, like, you know, the Bruce Swedins, the what's his name, Shep. You know what I'm saying? These guys are phenomenal. I mean, Shep has been on Beyonce records. You know what I'm saying? And it is what it is. And so, you know, you can have the ability to come out and want to try this, that, and the other, and on an MacBook Pro, but unless you touch a real Neve, a real SSL, is a whole different ball game. And so it kind of explain that a little bit.
Well, I will say, you know, those guys, one, they understand the basics of signal flow, signal processing. You know, that's why these guys can take these plugins and they know what works against this other one, you know, and you look at the chain and you're like, how did he, you know, he may have 5 or 6 plugins to get this incredible sound, but you won't know, you know, because right now, the thing that's in with these young engineers is, oh, let's just start with the preset. You know, maybe I can buy a preset. And a lot of them don't know anything about it. You know, they don't study audio. They don't study. A lot of them haven't studied frequencies. They haven't studied signal flow. They haven't started anything. And so they're just playing. And we live in this, and we are living in this information, this world of digital information being at our fingertips. plugins. It's like, oh, well, I'm not gonna spend that much time on a plugin. Drag it in.
Yeah.
Or use the same plugin every kick drum is gonna get this one.
Man.
Might add a little bit.
Man.
But there's character to each thing, and this is what's missing from a lot of engineers. They don't understand. One, you should be able to study recordings, old recordings, their techniques, how the things were mic'd. How many mics did they use on this snare drum? When you got people sampling drums from old records, they don't know that maybe there was only one mic on this old recording, but it sounds incredible.
Right.
So you got to be able to, I think it's important for a lot of engineers to even do sound alikes. And producers should also learn how to do sound alikes, where you try to recreate, old recordings. And in the process, you start looking at, man, how did they do this?
Right.
With only 4 microphones in one room. Where the room was taller, the ceilings were higher at the back, and then the closer you get to the room that's closer, you would move the instruments around, and you only had 4 microphones. How did they get this to work? How did maybe the Beatles recordings,
it's amazing.
There's too many.
Now watch this. It's amazing that you say that, because in the early 90s, before I had any professional gear, I would listen to what James Brown was doing. Not just, of course I sampled them to crazy, but I'm talking about the bass players like, Fred, what's his name? Fred, I've got his last name. But then, of course, Bootsy Collins, you know what I'm saying? Listening to riffs and listening to tone, you know what I'm saying? And then I learned that, of course, when he first started off, he had a jazz bass, you know what I'm saying? Going through an Ampeg amplifier. See, it's like you was just saying, if you're on a time crunch, I'm guilty of it. Sometimes, now listen to this. Sometimes I have done, like with my background vocals, I don't do it like with everything. But background vocals, I'm trying to move, I'm trying to get the project out. Because I understand frequency and I make adjustments to those presets, I throw a preset in. But sometimes a preset ain't gonna fix a bad mic. You gotta know what you're doing with those frequency bands. And so that's time and understanding your craft. Talk about that a little bit more.
I mean, when you're talking about even something as simple as doing vocals, if you're doing multi-tracking vocals, and maybe I noticed that a lot of young people, they record and they stay in the same spot. And that track 1, let's double it. Okay, I'm gonna stay right here. Track 2, stay right there. Track 3, stay right there. You can stack the same vocal over and over again. It doesn't have that sound.
That's right. That's right.
As opposed to, okay, this track, we're going to be a little bit over to the left, 2 more inches left, and back, a couple inches, because you're going to get that. You're going to get that space. The distance, and it's not going to sound like one person to the point where it's just phasing or it just sounds really bad. There's things, simple things like that. With okay, if you're miking drums, but not that a whole lot of people are doing that. But, they want to put one mic on it. What I don't understand, I was like, sometimes, hey, you need top and the bottom, at least.
At least, yes.
But that bottom part of the snare is actually more important than the top.
Ooh, yeah, because that's where the rest is.
It adds that body and that girth, and that's where the snare is, right?
Yes, sir.
So, understanding this, I mean, a lot of producers should learn how to tune drums, but they don't. That's not something they consider.
Right.
That's we're talking about live stuff, but I mean, even if you're mixing, if you're trying to make stuff sound live, or even if it's trap or whatever, you still have to understand how compression works, how EQ works, You know, instead of taking the quick route. Oh, start with the preset. You know, it's lazy.
Yeah.
And also it's like, where's the character? You're missing character that you're trying to add to the music. Everything's got to have attitude. You know,
Yeah,
a snare drum could have a lot of attitude. You know, listen to any of the Michael Jackson productions with Teddy. You know, those snares, those kicks and those snares had a lot of attitude.
Yeah, man. Take your, you know, them.
Yeah. Or if you listen to, you know, you automatically, you know, you hear like Off the Wall. You know, you hear that at the top of the tune. You know, or Rock With You. Right?
Yes,
Rock
sir.
With You. That sound is, you know, that's classic.
Classic.
You know,
man.
you listen to the drums Al Green.
Ooh,
you know,
yeah. That gritty sound. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now listen, check this out. We kind of running out of time, but it's all good. But what I want to do to close this out and just let you have the mic is I want you to tell me your signal chain, because even though you're a producer and an engineer, I want you to explain your signal chain when it comes down to your saxes. You're on point.
Saxes, it really depends of what I'm trying to get, whether it's tenor or alto. Track I played for you yesterday was just run 414, run into a, believe it or not, Pro Art, the Pro VLA, but swap the tubes out.
Ooh.
A Pro VLA 2 compressor.
Wow.
You can swap the tubes out.
Right.
Be a different thing.
Running it from
there.
Listen, real quick, not to cut over you, but I have a Pro VLA. I didn't know you could do that, man.
Oh yeah. You swap those tubes out, it make a big difference. But just that going into the into the interface, which is just the Scarlett 18920.
Ooh.
So that's not but mic placement is important.
It is, yeah.
Like in this case, to get that sound, I didn't put it directly on it so that you don't get a lot of finger noise.
Of course.
You know, sometimes if you too close to it, or so I'm kind of up and 90 degree tilted down. That particular thing, it depends if I'm cutting tenors or I'm cutting Barry or soprano. I might use a different microphone.
Okay.
It's all about character. If I'm playing a straight ahead thing, on the tenor or whatever, I might use something just as simple as a RE20. I just like that character because it picks up that beat. And if I want to sound like a classic jazz thing, but if I'm going to do a smooth jazz thing, I might use two mics. I might use, Slate Digital with the 414 to give me the top and a nice bottom.
Okay.
To give me that stereo thing. So it just really depends. But I mean, you have to, I suggest everybody go buy, every engineer needs to have a subscription to some kind of mix magazine or something.
Okay.
Learn things, learn things from these engineers, these articles, even go back and find old editions, of these magazines. If you don't like to read, you're gonna sound like it. Your mixes will sound like it. It's okay,
man.
Because everything is not on YouTube. But there's a lot of stuff on YouTube, but everything ain't up there.
Yeah.
I think that every engineer or young engineer should intern somewhere, sit up under somebody. It's
right.
no different than becoming a preacher or whatever. You got to sit up under somebody.
That's right. That's good.
But,
listen, man. We almost over our time, but it's been real. Listen, you got to come back to the show again. Because I didn't even know that you back in the day that you was hanging out in major studio. Man, look, if I turn the key on, we're gonna be in about 35 minutes on this joint. But so we're gonna have to bring you back, man. But listen, where can people go to hear about what you do, your studio, your website? Tell people about it.
Actually, my website is actually down. I'm refacing it. So it's been the same for the last 12, 13 years. So it's being refaced now. It should be out again at martinblackson.com.
Okay.
But you can, listen, my music. You can Google anything I've worked on, records that I've worked on. It's easy to find. As soon as you Google Martin Blackson, there's a bunch of IMDb or any of those. They'll come up on records that I've either written, produced, or some of the ones that I've created for myself. So those are the main things. I'm not hard to find.
Yeah, I'm glad you're not hard to find, because the projects I'm on, man, I got to have you on here, man. You part of the family now, bro. It's been real. I gotta cut it short. Gotta edit it and everything, but everybody, listen. We got this amazing, great friend of mine, great musician, great ear, has full of wisdom, and of course, I'm gonna tag in the description box the famous video that he put out about he had to sue somebody because they ain't give him his cash. So, it is what it is. It's Blackson all the way live, telling the truth like most Virginians do. I'm a Virginian, so it is what it is. All right, so we're closing out. Listen, thank you for joining episode 26, Producer Points with Martin Blackson. You be blessed.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. See you in the next episode.